Welcome to the Celebrity Gourmet Podcast, where we feature top bakery and specialty food entrepreneurs from around the world and share stories and tips on how to create a successful life in the baking world.
Hi, my name is Odette Danella, the host of Celebrity Gourmet Podcast, where I interview remarkable women in the bakery and specialty dessert industry and hear their stories of resilience, determination, and grit, and how they live fun lives while running their amazing businesses. Our past guests have included Natalie Blythe, owner and founder of Pie Bar. I want to encourage you, Katie, if you could, to go back and check out her episode that I recently did. And she discussed building a business literally with her bare hands. She's the only bakery owner that I know who's a master electrician, a plumber, and she repairs all of her machines.
What? Are you kidding?
I'm sending my machines to her.
Is she for hire?
Yes, she's a machinist.
Can I do some donut trade with her?
I'm telling you. And she also builds food trucks.
Oh, what? Food trucks?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I need to meet this lady. I've got like a laundry list.
She's incredible. We're going to make a bakery women posse.
Yes, thank you. I love it.
Okay. Well, everyone, I have Katie House here of Blue Star Donuts from Portland, Oregon. And Katie, I met Katie through EO, where we are part of the Food and Restaurant Forum. So we've known each other for a few years, Katie. And I just wanted to have you introduce yourself. I know Katie has grown and exited multiple food concepts. She's amazing. And Blue Star Donuts is the coolest donut place I know. I've been in the bakery business for so long. I must say it is
Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome.
That means a lot. You have very high standards, so that really does mean a lot to me.
Today's episode is brought to you by Celebrity Gourmet Ventures, our family-owned and operated specialty bakery in Tacoma. All right, Katie, let's just start. Please introduce yourself. My
name is Katie Poppe. I am the founder and CEO of Blue Star Donuts. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. I've been in this business as a restaurateur, founder, owner, operator since 2010. My first restaurant concept was called Little Big Burger, and grew that to 8 units and sold that in 2015 for a little over $6 million. Started up a bunch of other concepts: Boxer Ramen, Boxer Sushi, a ketchup company, Blue Star. And Blue Star was really, really my baby. It's really where my heart was. So I ended up selling my interest in all my other companies just to focus on Blue Star full time.
And can you tell us a little bit about Blue Star? Because if listeners don't know, Blue Star is incredible. It's an incredible donut concept. So please tell us a little bit about Blue Star, and then maybe tell us about how you got started, where your ideas came from, etc.
Sure. Blue Star is a gourmet donut concept. We make everything from scratch. So all of our cake donuts, buttermilk old-fashioned donuts. We make our raised yeast donuts out of brioche, which brioche is like if a loaf of bread swallowed a stick of butter, right? It's like this very buttery, pillowy type of bread base that we make our raised yeast donuts out of. It takes 18 hours. We do a double fermentation process. And the concept behind it was really inspired by my first trip to France. I had been to other countries, but when I was poor and backpacking, I could never afford to go to France. But when I could afford it, I went to France and was just blown away by their culinary game, right? Like you go into these bakeries and little pastry shops, and it's a whole new world. It looks like a jewelry store. There's gold lighting, just amazing how well they can do even just the most simple things.
Right.
And it kind of just floored me. And my business partner at the time and I were talking about like, well, how could we elevate something commonplace, you know, in our culture, in our country, and that hasn't really been elevated yet to that standard. And we're thinking about the donut, the humble donut, right? It's been around for a long time. And at that time, back in 2011, 12, there hadn't really been like a better donut yet. And so we just thought like, what if we could make the best donut we possibly can from scratch, using the best ingredients, using this raised yeast brioche base, you know, collaborating. We have all these wonderful vendors and farmers in the Pacific Northwest. We're blessed to have access to all these very high quality ingredients and artisans. And, you know, what if we just like make the absolute best, fanciest, most gourmet donut we possibly can, just because I want to eat it, to be honest.
Right.
Like I just want to eat it and put it in like a beautiful, clean environment, kind of French inspired, and, you know, just kind of change the whole experience around that. And to be perfectly honest, Odette, it was like a vanity project one-off. It was just like, it wasn't meant to be, you know, some big multi-unit anything. It was just, it's really hard to do. You know, this pastry is hard. It's very different. Restaurant, don't get me wrong, restaurant is hard too, but it's like chopping and assembly and cooking, and pastry is like chemistry and physics and atmospheric pressure. It's really difficult to control and replicate consistently. And so, you know, pretty quickly it was like, okay, we might be in over our heads because this is a lot harder than we thought it would. And I need a professional pastry chef. So, you know, I put out this ad. This was like in 2012, I think. I put out an ad on Craigslist because I guess that's where I thought you find professional pastry chefs. And luckily, my head pastry chef, Stephanie Thornton, was moving back from New York with her husband. They had gotten married. They met in New York. They were both in the restaurant scene. So she went to Johnson and Wales. She had worked at, she was head pastry chef at Four Seasons New York. She worked with Gordon Ramsay, and just happened to be moving to Portland, you know, looking for some work. And so she was like, sure, I'll take on some consulting work and help you guys make your recipes, develop your gourmet donut recipes. So she did. She's like in our apartment kitchen, like helping us figure out, you know, how to do this brioche and make a raised yeast dough from brioche and make our glazes and our core lineup of flavors. And then we opened our doors in December 2012, and like, man, sometimes things just hit, you know.
Right. How long was your line?
Well, it was crazy. It was just, there was something about the timing and the, you know, I don't know what it was, but something about the brand and the product and the timing just really hit with customers and like took us by complete surprise. Also, it's fun, it's sugar, it's sweet, it's a treat. There's a different like customer mentality versus a restaurant, you know, like with Little Big Burger or other restaurants, people come in, they're hangry, they, you know, there's a different expectation. It's a meal. There's like a different expectation and mindset around that versus I'm here to treat myself, to reward my family or my friends, to celebrate, to indulge, you know, and so, yeah, it was just so interesting to see like this very different customer mindset and reception. And then, of course, also it was a new category. It was like a new thing in the donut category. Most people are used to donuts being very inexpensive, very traditional. And so some people will get mad at it. Like, what do you mean you don't have sprinkles? And we're like, well, because they're full of preservatives and we can't find any, you know, and they're like, what kind of donut shop doesn't have feather boa? We're like, well, you know, get mad at us and walk out. Like, why? I can't believe this is so expensive. We're like, well, we're making everything from scratch. It's not bought from Cisco in a can sitting on the shelf for 20 years, you know? So some people were just like so angry and insulted because it's different than what they were expecting. But some people got it and they appreciated it. And like, I it was just a shoestring. So I didn't take a salary for, I think, the first 4 years or something. And we didn't have any money for marketing. So I just did Instagram, because it's like when Instagram was kind of big and very visual. It's such a visual medium. And donuts are just like so sexy. It's just like this beautiful food porn, sexy, dripping glaze. And between Instagram and word of mouth, it just like, went viral in the food world. And we got so much organic free press. We were on magazine covers. I don't know what happened, but somehow the Japanese got hold of us, and we were in like Japanese Elle and all their like cool. Somebody sent us a copy like a year later. They're like, "Hey, did you know that you're a big thing in Japan?" And we were like, "What?"
Amazing. Well, your flavor profile too. It's just so. Can you tell our listeners exactly what kind of flavors? Because that, like, the whole lineup is sexy. It's like a
Well, thank you. And that was really, again, we wanted to like, how can you take these traditional flavors and elevate them and make them the best they possibly can? So think about, for example, your simple glazed donut, like what, just a traditional glazed donut. And usually it's just kind of like a basic sugar water glaze. But we were thinking, well, how can we do something a little bit more interesting with that? Yes, we have this brioche raised yeast base, but how can we complement that and pair it? And what if we do an horchata glaze? And horchata is, a traditional Latin American drink, and it's made with rice milk and cinnamon and a little bit of sugar. And so we would make that from scratch. And it just something about like a little bit of sweetness with the rice and the cinnamon and the brioche, like it takes that simple glazed donut and takes it to the next level. Meyer lemon key lime curd. That was another, like, just kind of like your traditional lemon filled donut, right? And well, I love lemon curd, and a good lemon curd is so hard to just like a good simple lemon curd. And so Chef Stephanie, she took Meyer lemon and then key lime, and key lime has almost like a little bit of a coconut hint to it, and then she, I think, maybe doubled the butter that you're supposed to use. I don't know. It's like so much butter, but it's just like this rich, and then you've got the Meyer lemon tang, and then the key lime, a little bit of coconut, and then you stuff it in this brioche shell and just a simple powdered sugar exterior. And it's heaven. It's heaven. Yeah. It's heaven in a donut. And then, having like a berry glaze. And so this was actually inspired by a cocktail once, but it was fresh blueberries, fresh basil, and a little bit of local bourbon, and a little bit of powdered sugar blended together to make the blueberry bourbon basil donut. And
that's the one I love.
So that donut was on the cover of Bon Appetit. Yeah, but it sounds it's beautiful too. It's like this sexy dark purple. And you can see like the flecks of real berries that have been blended and the flecks of basil. And there's just, it sounds a little bit like, some people are like, basil, what? I don't want a salad in my donut. But it's not, it's just a little bit of a hint. And so our approach to donuts is taking, what might be traditionally simple kind of basic concepts, but how do we elevate it to something that is another world experience? And how do you add that, like, quote unquote, third heat, right? Like whether it's an alcohol or a liquor, or it's an herb or a spice or something that is a little bit, like we make a carrot fritter in the wintertime, and it's a carrot fritter with a little bit of a cream cheese glaze and za'atar. Za'atar is a Mediterranean spice that you wouldn't normally think would go in a donut, but there's something about the way that it blends with the carrot and the brioche and the tangy of the cream cheese that it just elevates it. It gives it that little something extra you can't quite put your finger on, but it like reverberates in your mouth and in your mind, and you think about it and you're like, what is that? Or like a powdered sugar donut. Everybody has a basic powdered sugar donut, but Chef Stephanie made an orange olive oil powdered sugar. So she uses Durant olive oil. It's a local Oregon a very, very high quality, award-winning olive oil. And she makes her own, makes her own powdered base out of it. And she uses that powdered olive oil base and then adds fresh orange oil and some spices to it, a little bit of fennel, to make our powdered sugar base for our orange olive oil donut. So it's another example of your basic donut, a powdered sugar donut that's really elevated to that next
That's
level.
incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I wanted to find out about, because I'm hungry now.
I should have sent you donuts. Sorry.
I know. So for our listeners, I during the pandemic, which I think Katie, you can expound on that. You were working on shipping. So I know
Yes.
that listeners from all over the country can get this now because you ship.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
I was lucky enough to be the beta tester, so I got donuts shipped to me and my team, and then we would send you, like basically feedback of what it looked like, what the donuts look like, and now you ship all over. Correct?
We do. And and it was great because I know Odette's not going to lie to me. She's going to be like, no, this was not good. You can't sell this to somebody.
I just send you okay, what about this kind of box? What about these?
Well, and if you're going to make this really special product, we wanted to have no compromise shipping. I don't want to compromise the quality and integrity of this beautiful product that it takes so much time and love and labor to make. And I want the user to have that experience as if they were just getting it in the shop. So we took over 2 years of R&D and so many ship tests to trusted friends and family and all this feedback. And so we finally developed this shipping process that involves a kind of like a flash freezing or sub-zero freezing to preserve the integrity of the donut and the flavors, and then get it to people. And it's hard, shipping is expensive, and we're still trying to tweak it. I understand that it's expensive, but the end result is that you will have absolutely an uncompromised gourmet donut experience. If you're in New York, if you're in Florida, if you have customers in Alaska and Hawaii.
Well, I've been in the bakery business since I was little. I used to clean the donut fryer when I was a kid. Yeah, because I worked for my aunt, right?
Pay your dues,
the challenge with donuts is that it goes stale so badly so quickly because of the oils. Once it sits around, the oils soak in. So I think it's brilliant, that whole flash freeze concept, because then it preserves the integrity of the oil sits at the surface. Is that what it is?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's part of the reason why we fry in rice oil too, because the rice oil, the way that the temperature that it cooks at, it doesn't soak in to the donut as much as frying and like palm oil or these other types of oils. It's more expensive for sure, but it does create a better product that is not soaking in all that grease. And palm oil, is just horrible for the environment, but leaves that coating in your mouth and you can taste it. When you taste other types of pastries that have been fried in palm oil, it leaves that waxy texture in your mouth that I can't, it just drives me crazy because I can't taste anything after that.
And a lot of the cheap donuts are fried in that. A lot of them are fried in shortening. So that's a taste that stays with you, and it coats the roof of your mouth, and you're just there's something about donuts that, when it's achieved in an amazing way, it leaves such an impact. And I told you this, I grew up in a bakery business. I never ate donuts, but Blue Star donuts, I can eat all day long.
That's the best compliment in the world.
Because it's delicious. It's so, so good. And I hope everybody goes online and orders, because it's so yummy. But I wanted to ask you, and I know we've known each other for a few years, but I don't know your background story. How did you get into the food business, and how did you get into opening up like a fast casual concept, did you know you were going to do
Completely
it?
randomly. No, I went to college for neurological psychology.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was a research assistant, lab rat, and I was kind of on the PhD track. And I love neuroscience. I have so much respect for it. I really love psychology as well. And it taught me a great foundation for research and data gathering and sifting through data and learning how to, analyze and interpret studies and data. And while I was in college, tragedy struck and my parents died, unfortunately. My dad died in a plane crash, and a couple of weeks later, my mom died from cancer.
Oh,
So, yeah, just kind of like record scratch. My whole life just really imploded, I guess. And I was 20, my brother was 16. And so I just focused a lot on helping to take care of my brother and get him through high school and into college. And just kind of like wrapped up my degree. And then in between, I was trying to decide if I should pursue this doctorate or not, and took a gap year and went backpacking around the world for a year. So I went to like China and India, Tanzania, Namibia, South Africa, Sicily, London, Guatemala, Honduras, and Costa Rica. And it gave me a lot of time to think and just process and work through a lot of what I want to do with my life and think about what does my life look like now that I don't have my parents anymore, who were really kind of a cornerstone of my support system and my self-esteem. And so it was sort of this process of like learning to rediscover myself and build my own self-esteem back up. And I, along that journey, decided that I wanted to be a business owner. And I didn't know what kind of business owner yet, just that I wanted to come back to my community and build something that would have an impact and give back to its community. We have so much that we take for granted in the US. I think that we lose sight of sometimes, especially as a woman. I can get divorced. I can own property. I can be educated. I can go to school. I can have bank accounts. Like these are things that a lot of women around the world still can't do. And that just really like blew my mind. And so I realized like, man, I really want to make the most of the opportunities that I'm fortunate to have.
Right.
So I came back to the States and I got into an MBA program because I thought I needed to go to school to learn how to be a business owner.
Right.
And halfway through, it was like, okay, this is like a grooming program for Fortune 500 companies. This isn't really, I'm learning, how to read balance sheets and whatnot, but it's not really like teaching me how to be a business owner. And so around that time, I met my first business partner. This was like 2008, 2009. And he had opened some fine dining restaurants in Portland that were critically acclaimed. But 2008, what was it? The economy crashed.
Yes,
right? There was that huge crash and people couldn't afford to eat out, $50, $40, $50 a head anymore. Yeah. But I would say that was kind of the beginning of the foodie revolution.
Yes.
Where people were becoming more aware of like the quality of food and where it comes from and why that's important. And so people were wanting access to better quality food. They just couldn't really afford it at that price point at that time.
Right.
So we kind of were looking around and realized that, his restaurants weren't doing well, but one thing that would still really sell well was the burger. Right. And the burger, right? And if you think about burgers as a category, it's been around for a long time. It's never going away, right? But there was a gap in the market. At the end, the low end of the burger market, you've got fast food, McDonald's, Burger King, very inexpensive, very poor quality food. The next leap is really a bistro burger where you go and you sit down at a restaurant. It's table service. You get a better made burger and, and with a side of fries and tips, it's like $15, $20. And there's nothing in between that. Like $2 crap or $15, good food, better experience.
Yes.
So we thought, well, why, and also why does fast food have to be geared towards kids? Why can't it be like cool for adults
Yeah.
who have good taste? So what if we take, this recipe, this burger recipe of yours that people really like, and shrink it? So instead of a huge meal, it's just a slider, like 4-ounce patty. But still use a brioche bun, still use, high quality beef, use chev, goat cheese, julienne onions, like still make it a really good, smaller experience, just not at that price point. And then just kind of build like a very simple, my partner, I'm a very like logical systems oriented person. And my business partner with, chef, like has all, he wanted to do like little big fish, and he wanted to do little big salads and little bit, all these other menu items. And I'm like, well, okay, now you need to have separate cooking surfaces.
Yes.
If you have different types of proteins, they have different cooking temps. They have, they're going to need separate storage, and you're going to need separate equipment, and you're going to need all this extra layers of stuff. And if I'm, this kid making $20 on the line, and I get a ticket for like 3 fish, 5 burgers, none of that's going to come out consistently. It just isn't realistically. So let's just focus on doing one thing and do the one thing really, really well. And that's what we did. So Little Big Burger. And then I put my research skills to work, and I started looking up a bunch of research studies on consumer behavior and restaurant psychology. And so there's so much information out there, like the color scheme, the decibel of music that was played, the number of items on the menu, like the price points, the way the prices are structured, all of that has consumer behavior data research behind it. So I put all of that to work at Little Big Burger, all like the color scheme, the price points, the music that was played, all of that had research behind it. And so we had our concept ready to go. We had a spot located, and we had an investor who then pulled out at the last minute because it's 2009. He's like, and this is like my first foray into this new industry that I really didn't know that much about yet. And I remember that I talked to all of my like trusted adults in my life. Like I talked to the parents of my friends that I grew up with. I talked to my aunts and my uncles. I talked to like my family friends, and every single one of them, Odette, said, "Don't do this. Don't do this. You're
back to school.
Throwing your money away. Right. You're dishonoring your parents. Like this is." 9 in 10 restaurants fail in the first, cited, and I get it. And I understand that they were trying to love and protect me. But I also knew, like, I remember I was sitting in the corner shaking because I had a little bit of money left from when my parents died. So after our investors pulled out, I was going to like bet the farm basically on this, new concept. And I was like, signing my life away on this lease. And I was like, physically shaking, like, am I going to do this or not? And I was terrified. It was absolutely terrifying. And then I realized, like, all of these people that I've asked for advice, who told me not to do it, when I think about it, like, none of them have actually done what I am trying to do.
Yes.
Like, none of them had actually had done, or even tried to do what I was trying to do. They were giving me advice, based on nothing, essentially, just based on, I understand they're trying to protect me, but I just also knew, like, okay, if I do this, I'm walking away from all of that love and support. And that's really scary. That's a really scary thing to do. But I also knew that if I don't do this, I'm always going to wonder what if. I will always, always, always wonder what if I had taken that chance? What if I had tried? And at the end of the day, that was the deciding factor for me, was I don't want to live with that regret and wondering what if.
Yes.
So that's how we started Little Big Burger. It opened in September 2010 and was immediately, again, right time, right place, right fit. It was a great access price point. It was a great location for where it was, and lines down the block, and it became a cash cow. And it turned out that I ended up being really good at like understanding how to operate and scale businesses. I'm not a chef, like I'm not a cook. This is why I hire experts that are very, very talented at what they do. But I did end up being pretty good at figuring out operations and logistics and scaling the business. And so that's kind of how I ended up falling into the restaurant industry.
That's an amazing story. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's amazing. And then you went into the ramen and sushi like concepts, correct? And you did the same thing.
Well, it was kind of like, okay, we made this work. Can we translate this to other food groups?
Because you sold Little Big Burger.
Yeah, but we were starting these other concepts while we were growing that one. And
what did you sell Little Big Burger to?
It was to Chanticleer, and they were a conglomerate that they were going around buying up better burger concepts at the time, trying to make like an umbrella company. So they owned like BGR and a couple other ones. They had a couple of Hooters locations too. And then all the press latched onto was like, oh, Little Big Burger sold to Hooters. No, that's not what happened, but whatever. It was fine. I always wanted to experience growing and selling a company. And I'm so glad that we sold. I learned a lot from going through that process and things that I would never do again. And it was nice to get paid, to be honest. As a restaurateur, you work your tish off. And
it was like your parents were like, you did good, girl. Here, let me multiply that.
Yeah, thank you. But and so ramen is great. It was really cool to bring that and to see, like, especially the Pacific Northwest, be more familiar and embrace that type of food cuisine. But it's a very seasonal type of product. Like you don't want hot soup in summer in our culture, So in winter you do gangbusters, but then in summer, it's dead. So you have to like make all your money in winter and then survive on lean times in summer.
Right.
It's really hard to make a good, profitable business out of that.
Right.
So that one was, I love the concept. I think it's very well executed, but it's hard to make a lot of money, like good money with that one. And then thinking about also, I think what I've noticed is that it's a lot easier to take something that's already integrated and a staple of our culture and do something with that than it is to try and innovate a fusion or something completely new. And this is where psychology comes in, because so much of our patterns of behavior of people, they're pre-programmed. Like when you want to celebrate something, graduation or promotion or Valentine's or anniversary, what do? You go to a nice steak dinner, right?
Right.
Or you go to like a nice fancy dinner to celebrate something. If you, want to go get brunch, where do you go? You go to like an eggs and biscuits kind of restaurant. You don't go try out something like kanji or just like that's just the way that our culture is like we have these patterns of behavior. Or like if we want Sunday morning we go get donuts and coffee, you have these cultural patterns of behavior that have been built in for decades and decades and decades.
Right.
Friday night we order pizza and we watch a movie. When we're moving in, we get Chinese food, we get takeout, and so I think that trying to swim against the current of these very well-established patterns of behavioral psychology is really hard to do. It's just, the deck is already stacked against restaurants, and like trying to invent something new around that is just so hard to do. So where I've found success is taking something that already has a well-established pattern of behavior around it and just either focusing on one aspect and making it very good and very consistent, or making like a different version of it. If there's a gap in that, Yeah, like if you look at the takeout pizza market, is there a gap there that's not being met somehow? And then I would focus on that. Or yeah.
I think you can write a book on this. I am not kidding. I am learning so much, and I'm so sad that we have a hard stop. But
Yeah, well, thank you. I just really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk about.
Oh my gosh, no, the pleasure is mine. And I'm driving to Portland, and we're gonna have
To get donuts.
Eat like donuts and drink coffee and just like.
Well, you haven't seen the new donut factory, so come.
I need to come and see the donut factory.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna drive there maybe this weekend. If
Okay,
you're
let me know.
in town.
Let me know.
So I wanted to just ask one last question.
Yeah.
So who are your role models?
Oh my gosh. Well, right now it's Justice Jackson Brown, Kentucky Justice Brown. I just think, I mean, that woman is, she's so honorable and so brilliant and so smart and very diplomatic and very wise. And
Who is she?
She's the new Supreme Court Justice.
Oh,
Supreme Court Justice Jackson Brown. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And has to overcome like this onslaught of negativity and hurdles, and she gets so much dumped on her, and it's just like, man, blowing it out of the water. And I want to say I'm inspired by our industry. Our industry, what we went through with the pandemic, and I understand that like it was a little bit different region to region, but I'm gonna get emotional talking about this, but it breaks my heart because so many owners who were good business people, who had good businesses and were doing really good jobs, got dealt an absolute crap hand, and it wasn't their fault. And there's nothing they could do about it. So many people went out of business, had to go out of business, just couldn't deal with it and left. And I don't blame them. And it just breaks my heart. And it's honestly by the grace of luck that we happen to get through that.
Yes.
Just like getting that right little grant at the right time to keep you going, or like the people that showed up. I don't know. It was just literally one step at a time. And it still is. I mean, we're still digging ourselves out of massive holes. And I just have so much respect for everybody that went through that.
I definitely want to do a part 2 of this interview, because what happened during the pandemic, and all of that, we walked that together as a group.
I know.
And just the entire, just the horror of it all. And just, it was just like
horror.
Watching, yes, it was like watching a horror movie.
Yeah, like train wreck. I mean, I can't do that until I buy a box of Kleenex because I'm going to get emotional.
Oh, yeah. I think that is an entirely different story to tell, especially with our industry. And a lot of the impact was borne by women, because we're the ones who open these like small concepts or big concepts. And a lot of women and minority owned businesses didn't get the grants, or they didn't have the right connections. So they shut down. And all like swaths of this incredible cuisine and incredible business owners just disappeared.
And hospitality. I mean, like people, we don't do this to make a ton of money. It's because the margins in this business are insane, ridiculously small. It's like people are called to it. It's like an act of service. People do this because they enjoy serving and putting good hospitality out into the world. And to see that just like evaporate and get obliterated, and then vacuumed up by bigger corporations, it just broke my heart. Still breaks my heart.
Well, Katie, if you were to have access or talk to your younger self, what would you tell her?
Oh gosh, I would tell her, it'll be worth it. Those really hard, dark times, it'll be worth it.
That's beautiful. I know the path.
What would you say to young Odette?
You're going to have fun. don't be scared. It's going to get more and more fun. It's true though. The older I've been getting, it's like life has been more fun in some tragic ways, but on the other side, it's all perspective.
Yeah.
You know, it is an adventure when you think of it. Scary. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Especially
you're good at it. You're good at having fun. That's why I like hanging out with you.
Well, you know, we go through grief, we go through joy.
Yeah.
It's the human experience. And Katie, I want to thank you so much for being on this podcast. I miss you, and I hope to see you very soon. Thank you so much, Katie.
Yeah, go get it, girl.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Celebrity Gourmet Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.